guys. About a month or so ago, I realized that both of my hives were completely dead. So now I really had to rethink of what is my rest of my winter plan for these hives. So I don't know, I haven't really opened them up other than to peek inside to see if I've seen any activity. I didn't see any activity. So today we're going to open it up and try to come down to the root cause of why did my bees die. It could be a lack of food, it could be a mite problem, but we're going to try to figure that out today. Alright, let's get into it. Okay, first we're going to take the cover off. And try to find a spot for all this stuff so it doesn't get full of snow. This is a quilt board that's supposed to help keep the moisture away from the bees. I'll do another video sometime on why we do this and how we make it. So I'm not sure that food is a problem because they still have a lot of their candy board left. And this is kind of just an extra supply of food that I give them so that if they run out of all their honey stores, they can come to this and they can make food out of it. I think the next step we're going to do is try to pull this winter cozy off. So this winter cozy is just an extra set of insulation to help the bees hold in their warmth during the winter. The reason I want to pull it off now is before it starts getting too warm, because if there's any snow or moisture in between this cozy and the hive, that'll start to mold as temperatures get warm and it sits and it's wet and then it gets cold again. So if we pull it off now, it'll save us some problems later on. And that I can lay in the snow because it's not going to be a big deal because we'll take it inside and dry it out before we roll it back up. So here is the queen excluder and lots of dead bees. And if I dump these on the ground, the chickadees will love them. They'll come and eat them up. So it's kind of just nature working its way around. So the first thing I want to do is, I see all this extra wax on the top here, and this really isn't beneficial for where it's at on the frames, but I can use this to render it down and get my beeswax that I use for my lip balms, my hand cream, my salves, stuff like that. And really, if I just take all of this, scrape it off, I do have to say it's a lot easier when the bees aren't getting angry at me for doing it. And we do have a solar melter we use, and we set that up on warm days during the summer, and we melt down our beeswax. It works pretty slick. Alright, so now I want to break some of these loose. As you can see, the bees had them all nice and sealed together. I am seeing something that's a little bit concerning to me. And part of the reason I wanted to do this now too, there's a lot of mold. So some of this stuff I won't be able to reuse for the next coming in bees. So I'll have to get that cleaned up. And the reason this happened is because honey has moisture in it, and then when you have all these dead bees, they soak in that moisture, and then that moisture just creates a mold condition. So a lot of these I was really hoping that I'd have for when I start my colonies in spring, because one of the first things I did when I realized my bees were dead is I made sure to get bees on order for next year, because you usually have to get them on order by end of December, January sometime, in order to have them for spring. So I'm going to put some of those in that tote. I'm hoping there's some good ones in here. Right now it's not looking like it. Got a lot of mold there. But they're heavy. So the fact that they're heavy means that there was honey in them yet, so I don't think food was a problem for these guys at all. So I'm kind of almost leaning more towards it might have been mites that killed them. I'm just trying to see if there's any eggs or anything that were laying in here. Yeah, more mold. But lots of honey in here yet, so they had plenty of food. And they really do a good job of sealing this stuff together. Oh, that one's really heavy. Yeah, if you look close there, every one of those cells has honey in it. This is all the capped honey. So it's all, there's a lot of honey there. It is a little chilly out today. It's about 27 degrees. We're in northern Wisconsin, so all of these are very heavy frames. Lots of honey. Lots of capped honey on this one. This one looks like we can actually reuse it, and it'll be great for feeding our bees come spring, as long as we're not worried about any kind of disease in the hive. But with having everything frozen, that should help. But yeah, all of this is capped honey, the whole frame, and it's heavy. Both sides, all capped honey. Alright, so we just took the top box off, and I cleaned off the top of the next box so you guys didn't have to watch all of that. Now we have to loosen this up a little bit. Got this nice and tight. Obviously nice and tight, because it's definitely not easy to get out of here. All right, they even have honey on the bottom box, and usually that's where they start. They start on this bottom box, and then as the winter goes on, they'll move up to the second box, and then hopefully by then we're at the end of winter and they shouldn't need that sugar brick I put on top. But if they would need it, it's there for them to use. But I'm seeing honey on these too, so this is really making me lean towards they may have had a mite problem. But there is a lot of dead bees in here. So what I'm going to do is just clean some of this off, and I want to collect some bees, some dead bees, for alcohol wash. So typically what I do during the summer to check for mites is I do a powdered sugar mite check. And this way it doesn't kill the bees. The bees still live after it. Alcohol washes are a little bit more precise, but you kill about 300 bees by doing it. Since they're all dead, I might as well do the alcohol wash and just see what we come up with. And some of these are definitely a lot lighter than they were in the other box, so this one's completely empty almost. Alright, so if you want to look in here, here's all our dead bees at the bottom of the hive. So when they died, they just all fell down. Now that my hands are all sticky, I'm going to take a half a cup of these. A half a cup of bees is about 300 bees. I'm going to put them into a mason jar, and I'm going to do an alcohol wash on them later. And I have them labeled because I have two hives out here. I have hive 1, which is this one, and I have hive 2, which is this one. Alright, so I'm just going to take a level half a cup of bees. And believe it or not, that's 300 bees. And I use a wide mouth canning jar because it fits in there really good. And I'm just going to seal this up until we go back inside. And then after a while, we'll do alcohol wash with that. And yeah, it's pretty deep in here. Definitely, there was a lot of bees left when they died. And one of the things that really triggered us to look inside the hive to see if there was activity, because we should still see them all kind of in their cluster, but we noticed that we weren't seeing new bees on top of the snow after a snowfall. And usually when you see that, you see dead bees, which is good because throughout the winter they're going to die. And then they get pushed out of the hive, or sometimes they'll sacrifice themselves and they'll come out and they'll fly and they just freeze to death and they die. And we started not seeing that anymore, and that's what made us decide to look in here, and sure enough, they were dead. And this was my strong hive, so I'm really curious to try to figure out why. Alright, so we're going to just finish emptying out these boxes, clean out these dead bees so that we can let the birds eat it, and then we'll be back to move on to the second hive. Okay, so we have everything pulled apart. I dumped all the dead bees. You can see them all back here. There is a lot of them. But now we have these boards that they go in the bottom, slide into the bottom board here. And this board kind of helps to show if you have a mite problem. So when I pulled this out, it is leaning towards that, because if you can see that, those little round guys there are dead mites. There's 3 there, 4 of them here, but this board is covered with them. So mites will kill your whole colony, and so it's really important to treat really well in fall and make sure you're monitoring your mite count going into fall, and any last mite treatments you can get at the end of the year is really good to do. Apparently I didn't do a good enough job at it this year, but when we do our alcohol wash, it'll definitely show us the exact percentage of mites, and we always want to keep it under 1%, so if we're anything more than that, it's not a good thing. Alright. We looked a little closer at each of these frames as we were putting everything back together. We got all the dead bees off. And what I thought was moldy, I don't think it really is now looking closer at it, because first of all, I have never had to do a hive inspection this detailed in winter ever, because last winter all my bees made it through the winter. This winter, well, obviously because I want to make sure everything is cleaned up and good, I'm doing this inspection. But what I thought was moldy here, I think that's just capped honey. So if some of you more experienced beekeepers maybe want to put a comment below on what you think, but I don't see, when I rub on this, I don't see any mold. I see some crystallized honey up here in the corner, which a lot of my honey from this year did crystallize. So, you know, some of you more experienced beekeepers, let me know what you think, but I am thinking I might be able to use these for my colonies that I'm getting come spring. And that would just give them a way better start instead of having to draw out all their own comb at the beginning of the year. Alright, so I am going to just put some of this stuff back on. I'll probably pull it off later in the year and clean it up a little bit better, but my hands are super sticky from all the honey. And I am going to leave my moisture, my quilt board on top, just to capture any moisture that may be happening, you know, through the rest of the year. Another reason I want to leave all these frames in here, because some of them are really heavy yet because of all the honey. This will help my hives from blowing over if we do happen to get any bad storms. So I'm going to have my husband help me put the top back on because it's a little heavy for me, and then we'll go take a quick peek in the other hive. Okay, so here's our second hive. This hive went into winter being really weak, so I really didn't have a lot of hope of it making through the winter, but there's always a chance, I guess. So, and these guys, there is not much honey in this frame, I can tell you that. Oh, but some of these outer ones definitely had a lot of really bad looking comb on it. So, and it is pretty heavy. So there is quite a bit of honey in here, but it's towards the outer sides, which if they were clustered in the middle, could have been the problem. So I am just gonna try to get some of these out because I do want to just get a mite count on this hive also. So we'll be back shortly when I can get to the bottom of this hive so we can get our half a cup of bees. So the reason this second hive was a lot weaker going into winter was, I'd say it was late summer, maybe like July or later summer they swarmed. And I was watching to see, because they did have a lot of queen cells, and I wanted to try to let them requeen themselves, which they did do eventually, but the size of the colony was just so small. And I think for this hive, the reason they didn't make it is there was just a small amount of bees, so I don't think they had enough of them there to keep themselves warm. So if you look in the bottom of this one compared to the first hive, there is very few bees here. I mean, the other one was really thick all the way across, and this has very few bees. There is still honey on the bottom box, so I don't think they starved to death. It was just, I think they couldn't keep themselves warm enough. So we're gonna get our half a cup of bees to do our alcohol wash with. Gosh, is this so much easier when they're dead versus when they're alive. So, a largemouth mason jar, so my measuring cup fits in there. Close it off, and it's labeled hive 2, so when we do our alcohol wash, we know which hive is which bees. All right, we're gonna put this all back together, and then we'll just hope for the best come spring when we get all our colonies set up for the new bees. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just put all of this back together, so now we kind of have an idea of what's going on with these hives. Watch for a future video. I'm gonna show you the alcohol wash, what our outcomes of the mites are, and like and subscribe for future videos. I will be putting my spring bees a video on installing them, and I'm going to have 4 colonies that I'm going to install out here, so I'm really looking forward to that. All right, have a great day, guys.